People versus Timothy Bliefnick. Mr. Bliefnick is present in court along with his attorney, Ms. Casey Stock. People appear by Assistant State's Attorney Josh Jones and Laura Keck. And Mr. Jones, are the people ready to start this afternoon? And is there anything we need to bring up?
Nothing to bring up. People are ready to start this afternoon. We have our witnesses here.
All right. And Ms. Stock, anything from the defendant?
No, Your Honor, we're ready to roll.
All right. Well, we'll roll at 1 o'clock then, and we will be in recess.
Thank you, Your Honor.
We are back on the record on 23 CF 170, People versus Timothy Bliefnick. Mr. Bliefnick appeared in court or in person along with his counsel, Ms. Casey Schnock. People appear by Assistant State's Attorney Josh Jones and Laura Keck. And then before we get ready to bring in the jury this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, if you're out in the audience, I'm going to admonish you again about cell phones. You're allowed to have the cell phones in the courthouse. When you are in the courtroom, they must be turned off. They must be put away so they are out of sight. If your cell phone goes off, or if security sees you with a cell phone out, they will ask you to leave, and you will not be allowed until the next day. That does not apply to the media, who is allowed to have their devices out and use their devices. I simply ask that the media have their ID badges on so that security can tell that they are the media, and so they will not hassle you if you are from the media. And with that admonishment, then, are the people ready to bring the jury in?
We are.
And Ms. Schnock, is the defendant ready?
Yes.
All right, let's bring in the jury.
The session of circuit court is now reconvened. You may be seated.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. We are continuing with the prosecution's case in chief, and Mr. Jones, you have evidence this afternoon.
I do. People would call Brian Dush.
If you could step to the front of the courtroom, please. Raise your right hand and be sworn.
You do solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in the cause and opinion before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Have a seat right over here, please. Then scoot up to the table and bend the microphone in front of you, and you may inquire. Wait just a second.
Yes, sir.
Show me wrong. If it's turned on. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Can you tell me your name, please?
Brian Dush.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a detective sergeant at the Quincy Police Department.
How long have you been with the Quincy Police Department?
A little over 27 years.
You said you're a detective sergeant. What does that mean?
I supervise the detectives in criminal investigations unit.
Were you the detective sergeant on this particular case, the Rebecca Bliefnick homicide?
Yes.
In connection with that role, on March 1st of 2023, did you and other officers with the Quincy Police Department receive a search warrant for the defendant's residence?
Yes.
And the address of that residence that was searched was what?
1641 Hampshire Street?
Were photographs taken of that process?
Yes.
If I could approach a witness, Your Honor.
You may.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked People's Exhibits 81 through 113. Are those photographs that were taken in the process of that search?
Yes.
Do those photographs accurately show what you observed while you were at the scene and not just observing, but helping with and overseeing that search?
Yes, they do.
Your Honor, we'd ask that People's Exhibits 81 through 113, I believe, be introduced into evidence and published to the jury.
Ms. Knock, have you had a chance to review those photos?
Yes, Your Honor.
You had a chance to do that pre-trial?
Yes.
And do you have any objection to the admission?
No.
They will be admitted and may be published.
Go forward to the first slide, please. On the screen, we have People's Exhibit 81. Can you tell me, this is a photograph of a garage at the premises at 1641 Hampshire, is that right?
Yes, it is.
And in that photograph, do you see something in the middle of the picture?
Yes.
What is that?
A bicycle.
Specifically, if we could go forward to People's 82, what kind of bicycle is it?
A black, red, and white mongoose bicycle.
Did you notice anything about that bicycle?
Yes.
Can you tell me what you noticed about that bicycle?
The rear tire is flat.
Rear tire is flat. Did you also notice that it has reflectors on both the front and back wheel?
Yes, it does.
Could you go forward to People's 83? People's 83, again, is this a photograph from the garage?
Yes, it is.
And it shows a pair of gloves, is that right?
It does.
Those gloves were seized and taken into evidence?
They were.
They were not tested for gunshot residue, were they?
They were not.
They were not tested for DNA, were they?
They were not.
Can you tell me why, with regard to DNA, they were not tested?
With regard to DNA, just based on the course of the investigation, there were priorities made based on things of probative value, and they were not determined to be of value.
I mean, if the defendant's DNA was on those gloves were in his garage.
That's correct.
And we'll talk about gunshot residue in just a moment. We go forward to 84, please. People's 84, again, in the middle of that photograph on top of the Craftsman toolbox, did you see something?
Yes.
And what is that?
A shoe?
And next to the shoe, you go forward to 85.
That's another pair of gloves.
And we'll talk about those gloves again in a minute. If we go to 86, again, in the defendant's garage, is that another pair of gloves?
It is?
Those gloves were seized as well as the gloves that were in People's 85.
Yes, they were.
People's 87. Is this a photograph inside the defendant's house?
Yes, it is.
And in the middle of the photograph is another pair of gloves.
Yes, it is.
And those were seized as well?
Yes, they were.
People's 88. Underneath the defendant's sink, are there a bag of disposable plastic nylon gloves?
Yes.
People's 89. Just another view of those gloves.
Correct.
People's 90. A trash can in the defendant's residence, is that right?
Yes,
And in the trash can, another pair of gloves.
that's correct.
Those gloves were seized as well, correct?
They were.
People's 91. Go back to 90. The gloves that were seized. Again, we've talked about why they weren't tested for DNA testing. All those gloves were found in the defendant's residence, correct?
They were.
Gunshot residue testing. None of them were tested for gunshot residue either, were they?
They were not.
These gloves were seized and found on March 1st 2023, is that right?
That's correct.
The murder of Rebecca Bliefnick occurred when?
Her body was located on February 23rd
Of 2023.
of 2023.
Can you tell us why, in your training and experience as the detective sergeant for the Quincy Police Department, why those gloves were not tested for gunshot residue?
In all the training that I have had, the window is a firm 6 hours from the time of the firing to have any success for gunshot residue.
After 6 hours, the chances of getting any kind of result are basically nil.
Correct.
Peoples 91. What are these photographs of, Detective?
Multiple Aldi shopping bags?
And those were seized as well, is that right?
Yes.
And those bags in People's Exhibit 91 were seized, and they're in this bag that's marked People's Exhibit 240, is that right?
That's correct.
I'm not going to have you open that here today, but can you look at the front of the bag and confirm that that's what's in that bag?
Yes.
Those bags were sent to the Illinois State Police for testing and comparisons with other exhibits that had previously been sent as well, is that right?
That's correct.
If you go forward to People's 92. Another view of those bags, is that right?
That's correct.
On one side it says East Toast, and on the other side it says West Toast. The East Toast is on both on every bag, is that right?
Yes.
And the West Toast is on every bag. It's basically the same size on every bag.
Yes.
I'm not sure if that's clear, so I'll try it one more time. On one side of the bag it says East Toast, on the other side it says West Toast.
Yes, that's correct.
93, please. What are we looking at here, Sergeant Dush?
This is a picture of a shelving unit in the basement of the defendant's residence.
On the bottom of that shelving unit, did you find anything?
Yes.
Can you tell us what we're looking at in a general sense here on the bottom of the shelving unit?
These are multiple boxes of various types of firearm ammunition.
People's 94. Again, is that just a close-up view of the various ammunition boxes?
It is.
95. Again, the other side of that same bottom shelving unit showing a close-up view of that ammunition.
Yes.
People's 96. The middle of that shelving unit, again, with those pictures of the ammunition.
Yes.
People's 97. This box in particular that we have in People's, I know it says 976, I believe that should be 97. That particular box, was there something special about that box?
Yes.
Describe for me what is special about that box.
So upon further examination of that box, not only were there boxes of unfired bullets, there were boxes of spent shell casings.
Go forward, please, one slide. People's 98. This Winchester box that we see here, is that what you're talking about, where there were spent shell casings?
Yes.
When you say spent shell casings, what does that mean?
So when a round is fired, the bullet and the shell casing separate, and what is left behind is the shell casing.
Shell casing is then, if it's a semi-automatic, it will be ejected from the weapon, is that right?
Yes.
If it's a revolver, the shell casing stays in the weapon.
Correct.
When you found, you go back, there were multiple shell casings found around Becky Bliefnick's body on February 23rd, 2023. Is that
That's correct.
What caliber were those shell casings?
9mm.
When we say caliber, can you describe what that means to the folks on the jury?
Caliber roughly describes the diameter of the round.
Is there a difference between a 9mm and a 40mm?
Yes.
Or a 9mm handgun and a 357 handgun?
Yes.
That would be the size of the shell casing.
Correct.
In that box, what millimeter of shell casings that were fired did you find?
9mm.
People's 99? What are we looking at here?
So this is a close-up photograph of the shell casings from one of the boxes laid out to show the different types.
And these are the 27, so I think these are the 54 shell casings that were seized and recovered.
Yes, sir.
And these 54 shell casings were sent to the lab for further testing.
They were.
These 54 shell casings were all 9mm shell casings, is that right?
Yes,
And the shell casings up here are a different caliber.
they are.
What caliber were they?
I believe they were 38 special.
If I could approach the witness, Your Honor.
You may.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 236. Do you know what's in that bag?
Yes, there are 54 9mm shell casings.
That would be the same 54 shell casings that we see here standing on their edge.
Yes, sir.
And if I could approach the witness,
You may.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 235. Is that the Winchester box that we see at the bottom of the screen?
Yes, it is.
And inside that box, we can all hear it rattling around. Are those the other shell casings, the 38 special, or I don't remember what you said those caliber what was, but I think it was a 38, is that right?
Yes,
Are those 38 rounds in that box?
they are.
Now, those were not sent to the lab for testing.
Correct.
Can you tell me why those 38 rounds were not sent to the lab for testing?
We only recovered 9mm rounds at the scene, leading us to believe that Becky was shot with a 9mm firearm.
So the rounds that are not 9mm had no relevance to your investigation, fair to
None.
say?
Yes,
The rounds that were 9mm, you sent to the lab so that they could be compared with the rounds, the shell casings that were recovered from the scene.
yes.
We can go forward to People's Exhibit 100. People's Exhibit 100 is just a different view of those same shell casings.
Yes, it is.
And 101? Again, a close-up view of those shell casings.
Yes, it is.
And 102. People's Exhibit 102 is a photograph taken where, Detective?
That is inside the primary bedroom of the defendant at his residence.
Is there something on the floor in that residence in the middle of the picture?
Yes,
And what is that?
that is a safe.
And is it a particular type of safe?
Yes, it's a safe that finger pressure can be used to open quickly,
What's the purpose of a safe like that?
to be accessed quickly.
Is it referred to sometimes as a gun safe?
In common usage, it's referred to as a gun safe.
And you would have a gun safe in your bedroom to possibly store a gun in, is that right?
Yes,
And a gun safe like that is so that you can have quick access if in the middle of the night there's a prowler or an intruder, you can get that gun, right?
yes,
People's 103. Again, is that the same gun safe that we're talking about?
yes, it is.
And did you in fact open that gun safe?
Yes,
When you opened that gun safe, was there anything in that gun safe in the defendant's bedroom?
nothing at all.
People's 104. Gun safe was empty.
Yes, it is.
Was there any handgun in the defendant's bedroom?
No,
People's 105. Was there evidence of gun ownership or something relating to a gun though in the bedroom?
yes.
Can you describe that for me?
So there was a case located next to the safe that upon opening had multiple holsters in it.
specifically in People's 106, is that one of the holsters?
Yes, it is.
Can you describe that holster for me?
That is a holster that's made of it's molded for a particular type of firearm. It's either made of leather or faux leather.
If I can approach the witness, Your Honor.
You may.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 234. Is that the physical piece of evidence that we see on the screen in front of us?
Yes, it is.
In the course of searching the defendant's house, and we'll see some other pictures later, did you find handguns in a different location?
Yes.
Did any of the handguns that you find match that holster?
No.
People's 107? People's 107 is the backside of that holster. Does it show basically a belt clip where you would clip that holster on your belt?
Yes.
People's 108? People's 108 is a photograph of the downstairs at 1641 Hampshire, is that fair?
Yes.
And did you see something in the middle of this photograph?
Yes.
What is that?
That is a large safe commonly used to store firearms.
Gun safe?
Yes.
People's 109? Again, just a different view of that gun safe.
Yes, sir.
People's 110? You open that gun safe?
Yes.
When you open that gun safe, is this what you saw?
Yes, it is.
Can you describe what we're seeing here?
So we're seeing the inside of this gun safe. There are multiple firearms accessories, some ammunition.
Are there handguns in this gun safe?
Yes.
Can you describe what handguns were in this gun safe?
So there is a revolver sitting on the shelf, exposed. There
This
are,
top shelf?
yeah, the next one down. There in the shelf below that, in the black canvas or cloth pouch, there was a handgun located, also in that pouch.
Before you executed the search warrant, in the process of executing the search warrant, did you conduct a gun purchase check on both Rebecca Bliefnick and the defendant?
Yes.
And when that gun purchase check was done, were there certain handguns that had been purchased by Ms. Bliefnick?
Yes, I don't believe that search was done before the execution of the search warrant.
I apologize, let me rephrase. Then after it was done, did you do that?
Yes.
And did you find that Ms. Bliefnick had purchased a handgun?
Yes.
And what kind of handgun was that?
CZ75B 9mm.
At any point when you were in the defendant's residence at 1641 Hampshire, did you find a CZ75B 9mm handgun?
No.
You said that there was a purchase history for the defendant as well with regard to a 9mm handgun.
Yes.
What kind of handgun was that?
There were two 9mm handguns, one being a Ruger LC9 9mm and one being a Ruger SR9 9mm.
And in the course of executing the search warrant, did you find one of those handguns?
Yes.
What handgun was that?
The Ruger LC9.
And that was seized and taken to evidence
It was.
and sent for testing.
It was.
The other handgun that you mentioned, what was that? I'm sorry.
A Ruger SR9 9mm.
Was that found anywhere in the defendant's residence?
No.
People's 110, 111? You said that you found one handgun, the Ruger, I apologize, I'm not good with the numbers. What was that, Ruger?
That is a Ruger LC9 9mm.
That was found downstairs in the gun safe in his living room.
Yes.
Well, or downstairs at least.
Yes, downstairs.
People's 112, please. I want to move back down to the basement then. In the basement, was there something else recovered besides what we've talked about so far?
Yes.
And what do we see here at the top, on this top shelf, that related to your investigation?
That is a crowbar or pry bar.
Was that crowbar on the top shelf recovered?
Yes, it was.
Now, on this shelf, do you see any other tools?
No,
On the shelf below it, are there any other tools?
no,
And on the shelf below it, looks like there's a suitcase and some plastic things, but no tools there either.
none that I'm aware of.
That crowbar that's shown in People's Exhibit 112. If I can approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 237. Ask you if you recognize that.
Yes,
That's the same crowbar that we see in People's 112,
it is.
and that was sent to the crime lab for further testing as well.
It was.
People's 113. Close up of where that pry bar was in People's 113, is that right?
Yes,
People's 114? Okay. Sergeant, in connection with the investigation, did you also receive a computer download of or a hard drive with the contents of the defendant's computer?
yes,
And did you search or go through part of that?
I did.
You had other detectives go through other parts,
Yes,
but there was a portion that you went through yourself.
yes,
And when you did that, did you find some photographs that you thought to be relevant to your training and experience?
yes,
Let's talk then about your training and experience in this particular area. Are you, or do you have specialized training in the area of firearm instructing and firearm recognition?
yes. I'm a certified firearms instructor and a certified Glock armorer.
As both the certified firearms instructor and certified Glock armorer, have you seen or familiar with the CZ75 firearm?
I am.
Yeah, you can show it, yeah.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as People's Exhibits 114 and 115. Do you recognize those?
I do.
Can you tell me, you got those photographs from the download of the defendant's computer that was provided to the Quincy Police by the Illinois State Police?
Yes,
There was a hard drive. You examined part of the contents of that hard drive, been previously introduced into evidence, and found those photographs.
I did.
Your Honor, we would ask that those photographs be introduced into evidence.
Any objection, Ms. Schnock?
Yes.
Okay, the objection,
Your Honor, I believe that these photos are overly prejudicial to Mr. Bliefnick and have no probative value.
you wish to be heard, Mr. Jones?
I do. I can do that here, or if the court wants to do it off the record.
The court's going to overrule the objection, and those will be admitted. 14 and 15 will be admitted over objection and may be published.
In People's Exhibit 14 that was found on the defendant's computer, can you tell us what we're looking at here?
Yes, we're looking at a photograph of the defendant.
And what's he doing?
He is holding a Ruger Mini 14 rifle.
When you executed the search warrant in the defendant's home, did you find that Ruger 14?
Yes, it was in the gun safe, the large gun safe downstairs. Yes,
Also, do you notice the color of the ear protection that he's wearing?
yes,
It's yellow, is that right?
it is.
He's also wearing blue jeans, tan boots, and a gray cap, fair to say?
Yes,
If we could go forward to People's 115. The individual in this picture is turned to the side. You cannot see his face. Is that fair to say?
That's fair.
He is wearing, however, the bright yellow ear protection.
Yes.
Correct? He's wearing a gray ski cap,
Yes.
blue jeans,
Yes.
and the tan boots.
That's correct.
He's also wearing a black sweatshirt that we previously saw that was on the defendant in the previous photo. Fair to say?
Yes.
What's that person doing in this photograph?
Holding a black handgun.
In your training experience, do you recognize that brand and model of handgun?
I do.
What is that handgun that he's holding in this photograph?
That is a CZ75.
I want to be fair. Those photographs did not have any dates attached to them, and you do not know when they were taken.
I don't.
And you do not know where they were taken.
I don't.
Finally, I want to talk to you about the crime scene at the Kentucky Road address. You were there at that crime scene?
I was?
When you arrived at the crime scene, the victim, Becky Bliefnick's body was still there, is that right?
Yes.
When you arrived at the crime scene, did you notice anything on and around her body?
Yes.
Can you tell me what you noticed on and around her body relevant to your investigation?
There were multiple pieces of what appeared to be roughly shredded plastic.
In connection with the investigation, did officers do a test?
Yes.
And was that test involving a 9mm handgun and plastic Aldi bags?
It was.
Specifically, did you use the same brand of Aldi plastic bags that we saw in the photograph that were in the defendant's home?
Yes.
Can you describe for me the test that was used? Or basically, did an officer put a gun inside the bag or inside a couple bags and fire multiple rounds?
Yes.
As a result of that, were there multiple pieces of finely shredded plastic on the ground after the officer did that?
Yes.
Did you compare the two and see them both? Did they seem similar?
They did seem similar.
So the plastic, after the officer fired the 9mm handgun through the Aldi's bag, was similar to what you observed at the crime scene surrounding the body of Becky Bliefnick.
It was.
That's all the questions I have, Your Honor. I would ask that all the exhibits, People's Exhibits 81 through 113, Exhibits 234 and 235, 236 and 237, Exhibits 240 and Exhibit 114 and 115 all be introduced and admitted and received into evidence.
81 through 113 was already admitted. People's Exhibit 240 was the Aldi bags. Any objection to 240, Ms. Schnock?
No.
Will be admitted. People's Exhibit 236 is the 9mm casings. Any objection to 236?
No.
It will be admitted. 235 is the Winchester box. Any objection to that?
No.
That will be admitted. 234 is the gun holster. Any objection to that?
No.
That will be admitted. And then 237 is the crowbar. Any objection to that?
No.
That will be admitted. And then we admitted 114 and 115 over objection. And then, Mr. Jones, did I get all of the exhibits?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Then, Ms. Schnock, cross?
Yes. Sergeant, I have some questions for you, so bear with me as we get through this, okay? The photos that you have testified to this afternoon, this is not a comprehensive collection of all of the photographs that were taken at Tim's house on March 1st, correct?
It is not.
There were hundreds of photos that were taken that day, correct?
Correct.
And there was also a recorded walkthrough done at his house, correct?
That's correct.
All right. I want to first start talking about the gloves. You mentioned when you were speaking about the gloves that they were not tested for gunshot residue because there's a 6-hour window, correct?
Yeah, based on all the training I've had, is that after 6 hours, there is an extremely negligible chance of recovering any gunshot residue.
But a chance nonetheless, correct?
It's negligible.
But a chance.
I have not received any training that would suggest that it's, that it can happen
Okay.
over 6 hours, ma'am.
And is that, does that include dissipating off of surfaces such as a piece of cloth like a glove or a tool?
All surfaces, yes.
Okay, so it dissipates, it just goes away?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up. As far as the gun safe in Tim's bedroom is concerned, the first time that you saw that gun safe was that day, correct?
Yes.
And so you have no knowledge as to when, if ever, that safe would have contained a gun, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you don't have any information on the last time that it was opened or that it was ever opened by Tim, correct?
No.
Okay. And as far as the big gun safe is concerned that was found on the main floor of Tim's house, how was that safe accessed?
With a key.
Okay, and who provided that key to you?
The defendant.
Okay, and that was during the execution of the search warrant at 20th and Hampshire, I believe?
I don't know exactly when he provided it or who he provided it to. I just know that it was provided that day on March 1st.
Okay, and during the course of your investigation, did you ever come across any reports of either Tim or Becky reporting a stolen gun?
Objection, Your Honor, it's a compound question.
Okay.
During the course of your investigation, did you ever find any reports of a stolen gun?
I'm going to approach Your Honor.
I'm going to ask you to rephrase that question. Please ask that question with each person that you are inquiring, and please limit that to a reasonable time within the alleged incident.
Okay,
You said ever, you said both of them in your original question.
sorry. I will rephrase my question. During the course of your investigation, did you look to see if Tim ever reported a gun missing or stolen?
Yes.
And did you find such a report?
Yes.
And during the course of your investigation, did you ever check to see if Becky reported a missing or stolen gun?
Yes.
And did she?
Yes.
Thank you. As far as these pictures of Tim are concerned, you don't know if these were taken 5 years ago, 10 years ago. You can't tell us at all when those were taken, correct?
The only way that I could narrow that down is I do have a purchase date for the CZ75.
Okay, but as far as anything else is concerned, you can't tell us when those pictures were taken?
No, ma'am.
Okay, and you can't tell us where those were taken, correct?
I don't know.
And you can't tell us what was taking place when those pictures were taken, correct?
Oh, other than the firing of firearms, no.
Okay, and you don't know if this was a photo that was taken before Tim and Becky separated or after, correct?
I don't.
Okay. There were other items that were collected during the course of the investigation that you have not mentioned with your questioning of Mr. Jones, correct? There were
Yes.
several other items of evidence that were
Yes, ma'am.
collected. For example, there were pieces of broken plastic that were found in his driveway that was collected, correct?
Yes.
Were those pieces of plastic sent out for any sort of testing?
I don't believe so.
Okay. There were also several pairs of shoes that were collected from Tim's house, correct?
That's correct.
And one pair was sent to the crime lab for testing, correct?
Yes.
And there were also pieces of broken glass that were found in a trash can that were collected at Tim's house, correct?
Yes.
Were those pieces of plastic sent off for testing?
No.
There was also a melted down silver substance that was found at Tim's house, correct?
Yes, in the
And-
garage.
Okay, and there was nothing significant, or was that sent out for testing?
It was not.
Okay. And were there also several blink cameras that were taken from inside of his residence?
Yes.
And were those analyzed or sent out to be analyzed?
Not by me.
Okay. There were also several phones and laptops and tablets that were taken, correct?
Yes.
As well as, I think, 2 Xbox towers.
Yes.
And were all of those collected and sent out for testing and analysis?
They were all collected. I don't know the answer on whether every single piece was sent for analysis.
And as far as the gloves that were collected are concerned, there were several different types of gloves found at Tim's house, correct?
Yes.
There were work gloves, there were winter gloves, there were plastic or latex gloves, maybe other kinds of gloves, correct?
Yes.
And none of those were sent out for testing, correct?
No, ma'am.
Your Honor, I don't have any other questions.
Redirect.
Just a couple questions. With regard to the upstairs gun safe, how did you get access into the upstairs gun safe, the one that was in the defendant's bedroom?
We were provided a key by the defendant.
With regard to the questions that Ms. Schnock asked about the report of the stolen gun, and specifically the CZ-75, who was that reported stolen by?
Becky Bliefnick?
And was the defendant approached about that CZ-75?
He was.
Was he asked where that CZ-75 was?
He was.
And did he say that he didn't know where it was and he hadn't seen it in a year?
Yes.
And would that have been in, I believe the date of that was in 2021, is that right?
Yes, I don't know the exact date of the report, but I believe it was in 2021.
And after the defendant said he didn't know where it was, that's when Becky reported the gun stolen?
Yes.
Becky told in the report that she didn't know that it was stolen, she just didn't know where it was and wanted it reported stolen at that point.
Yes.
That's all the questions I have.
Ms. Stock?
No
give you
further
another-
Nope.
No? All right. If you could hand those exhibits to the bailiff, and you may step down. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now stand up and stretch. Mr. Jones, call your next witness.
People would call Patrick Hollensteiner.
You'll step to the front of the courtroom.
You do solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in the cause and opinion before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Have a seat right over here. Scoot up to where you're comfortable and bend the microphone in front of you. Mr. Jones, you may inquire.
Can you tell me your name, please?
Patrick Hollensteiner.
What do you do for a living, Mr. Hollensteiner?
I'm a police officer with the city of Quincy.
How long have you done that?
With the city, 6 years. I've been a cop for a total of 10 years.
Officer Hollensteiner, in February of 2023, did you play a role in the investigation of the homicide of Rebecca Bliefnick?
Yes, it did.
And I want to talk first then about a search that you did for a particular item.
Okay.
In the course of your role in this investigation, was there something that you were tasked to look for to start looking for?
Bicycle.
And was that because there had been video of an individual on a bicycle?
Yes, sir.
Did you start that process of looking?
I did.
And were you able to, in fact, find a bicycle in a particular location?
Yes, I was.
Let's talk first about that bicycle, and I'll show you what's been marked as People's Exhibit, actually 16 and 17.
116.
116 and 117. Tell me when you've had a chance to look at those.
I've looked at them.
Do those show maps of a particular area of Quincy, Illinois?
Yes.
And do they also show particular locations of interest? In one of the maps, does it show the defendant's residence?
Yes, it does.
Does that map also show the location of where you found the bicycle you were talking about?
Yes, it does.
In the second map, does it show the defendant's residence,
Yes, it does.
the location of the bicycle,
Yes, it does.
and the crime scene at 25 or on Kentucky Road?
The second one shows the area of the bus barn video.
I apologize. The bus barn, is that right?
Yes.
Your Honor, we'd ask that people's 116 and 117 be admitted in evidence and published to the jury.
Any objection, Ms. Stein?
No.
They will be admitted, and you may publish them.
On the screen now, if you could help us orientate ourselves on this map, on the bottom is Hampshire Street, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And this street that's running north-south is 18th Street.
Yes, sir.
So on this map, north would be towards the top of the screen, south would be towards the bottom, west towards the left, and east towards the right.
Yes, sir.
In the red box here, is that the defendant's residence?
Yes, it is.
And where this blue dot is, can you tell me what you found in that location?
I found a blue Schwinn Sidewinder bicycle.
That location is approximately half a block or less from the defendant's residence, fair to say?
That's correct.
Ms. Keck, if we could go forward to the next slide. And again, in this slide, again, to orientate, north would be to the top, south would be to the bottom, west to the left, and right to the east.
Correct.
Around the red box, or inside the red box, is the defendant's residence.
Correct.
Where the blue dot is where you found that blue bicycle.
Yes, sir.
And 20th Street, the bus barn, the Quincy bus barn.
Correct.
Thank you.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked as People's Exhibits 118 through 122. Can you look through those and tell me when you've had a chance to look at them?
I've looked at them.
Are those photographs of the location and the bike that you found?
Yes, it is.
And what was the date that you found that bike? I apologize.
February 27th.
Of 2023?
Yes, sir.
Do those photographs show what you saw on February 27, 2023?
Yes, sir.
We'd ask that those exhibits 118 through 122, be admitted and leave to publish.
Any objection, Ms. Stein?
No, Your Honor.
118 through 122 will be admitted and may be published.
What are we looking at here, officer?
That is a garage that is in just east of 18th Street, west of 20th Street, and in between Vermont and Hampshire Street.
This garage is where that blue dot was, fair to say?
Yes, sir.
And in the middle left side of the photograph, do you see something?
In this picture, I see a bike tire.
Is that the bike that you found?
Yes, it is.
If we could go forward to 119.
For the record, that was 118. That was photograph 118. Go ahead, Mr. Jones.
Exhibit 119 is on the screen now. Officer, is this basically a view from where that tire was facing the opposite direction?
Yes, it was.
So this street out here would be 18th Street,
Yes, sir.
and this alley is the alley that runs between the blocks.
So I believe that might actually be a driveway because the alley and the driveway are a little bit offset.
If we could go forward to 120. This is, I'm sorry. So the photograph that we saw there is going down, I'm sorry, you're right, yeah, it's a driveway, this driveway here.
Yes, sir.
And then the alley is right here from 18th Street.
Correct.
Thank you. We can go back to the next slide and then forward to 120. Again, just a close-up as you're approaching that bike.
Yes, sir.
And 121, please. Again, close-up of the tire wheel that you saw.
Yes, sir.
And 122. Is this the bike that you found?
Yes, it is.
Officer, did you notice anything about the wheels, both wheels on this bike?
They appear to have air in them.
Did you notice anything that they don't have?
Reflectors.
I think we're done with the those exhibits for just a moment. Oh, sorry. Did that bike appear to be rusted in any way when you found it?
No.
Did it appear to have any damage from sitting there for a long time?
No.
Were the weeds growing over it or through the wheels or the spokes?
No.
Was there anything that indicated that it had been there for a long period of time?
No.
Did it appear to you that it had been placed there relatively recently?
Yes.
If we could turn the lights back on for just a moment, we do have another couple exhibits with them, but not yet. Was there another role that you fulfilled in this investigation, specifically with regard to the search for video surveillance?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
I was assigned to conduct a neighborhood canvass and try to talk to neighbors, look for video surveillance in the area.
So how do you do that? You just go door to door, knock on people's doors and say, hey, do you have video?
That's exactly what I did, yes.
And when you did that, when you went door to door, tell me the area that you were focusing on, going door to door, knocking and asking if they had video.
At first, I started with every house in the Kentucky Road neighborhood subdivision. I'd knock on the door. If they had video footage or had video cameras, I would attempt to see if they had any video footage of the incident or around the time frame. If they did, I would get it and download it at the Quincy Police Department.
Well, let's talk about Kentucky Road first. Outside of Taylor Hyman, was there any success at getting any ring or camera footage on the Kentucky Road area?
Not that I recall.
And do you remember when you were talking to the people, was it basically they either didn't have video or the sensitivity was set up that it wouldn't pick up to the road?
Correct. A lot of them didn't have the sensitivity. I remember one house that was across the street that had cameras, but they weren't activated.
Did you search other areas as well
I
for
did.
video?
I did.
Tell me about that. Where else did you search?
I continued to the east. I believe it was York Street, all the way to 20th Street. On the night of the 27th, I know that I made contact with the Napides on 20th Street and they were unsure if they had video surveillance. They had I believe it's through United Systems that managed their surveillance video, and they would get a hold of them, and that subject ended up getting a hold of me the next day.
And you got video from that location.
Correct.
Were you successful at any other location, used particularly? We've already heard testimony about video from the Quincy bus barn, but any other location, were you successful at getting video surveillance from any of the nights in question?
No.
And again, was that because they didn't either have cameras, or if they had cameras, it didn't record, or if it did record, the sensitivity was not
Right.
set up to go to the street?
Commonly, what I ran into was sensitivity issues with the camera and how far they had set their camera limits to record from.
Was there one other thing that you did at the crime scene a few days after the crime occurred?
Yes, there was.
Can you describe that for me, what you did?
I was asked by Sergeant Dush and Detective Nick Eddy to essentially climb the side of the victim's home to videotape it.
And was that in fact done?
Yes, it was.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked as People's 123. Officer, is that in fact a video of what you did of climbing up the side of the residence on Kentucky Road and onto the roof, basically?
Yes.
Did that video accurately record what you did?
Yes.
Your Honor, we'd ask that exhibit 123 be entered into evidence and leave to play it for the jury.
Any objection, Ms. Schnock?
No, Your Honor.
It will be admitted, and you may publish that or play it for the jury.
Officer Hollensteiner, a couple times in that climb, when you first started it, it looked like you struggled a little bit. Could you describe that climb for me? How was that?
I mean, it was a challenging climb. I would say that you have to be somewhat athletic to utilize that, and obviously I had a height advantage, and I think that somebody that would be physically fit would be able to do that.
How tall are you?
6'4", 6'4.5".
Are you aware of how tall the defendant is?
He's 6'2", according to his Illinois driver's license.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have. I think all the exhibits have been admitted.
I believe they have been. Ms. Schnock, cross-examination.
Thank you. I just have some questions for you, so bear with me, okay, sir?
Okay.
The bike that you found, that was on February 27th, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So that would have been 4 days after Becky's death?
Yes.
Okay. And as far as that bike is concerned, you don't know how long that bike had been laying there, correct?
No,
And you don't know how that bike got there, correct?
I don't.
And you don't have, I'll strike that. As far as how long have you worked with QPD?
6 years, roughly.
Okay, and is it common for QPD to come across or have reports of abandoned or lost bicycles in the area?
It happens, yes.
Okay, so it's not unusual to come across an abandoned bike in the middle of town, is that fair?
I'd say that's fair.
Okay. Is the closest you found that bike to Tim's house, at that garage around 18th Street, or just off of 18th Street?
Correct. What was shown in the pictures is where I found it. I never saw it any closer.
Okay, and did you see that bike any closer to Becky's house than 20th Street? Or a bike closer to 20th Street than to Becky's?
No, that's the only bike I found.
Okay. Was any part of that bike dismantled and sent off for testing?
I don't know exactly what they did with it. I recovered it, transported it to the police department. It was turned over to Detective Eddie.
Okay, and that was your extent of your involvement in that, correct?
Correct.
As far as your door-to-door work is concerned, how many houses did you go to in the Kentucky Road area looking for viable surveillance video?
That day, I believe I touched on just about all of them.
And-
There might have been two that I didn't go to. I remember, I think Amy Schmiedes Camp was one of them that I wasn't able to make contact with.
All right, and approximately how many houses are in that neighborhood? Is it a small neighborhood, or is it?
I'd say it's a bigger size neighborhood, maybe 40 houses.
Okay, and other than Taylor Hyman, you were unable to recover any viable surveillance from Kentucky Road, correct?
Correct.
And how long did it take you to go door to door in the Kentucky Road neighborhood?
Approximately 4 hours, maybe.
Okay, and during your investigation, did you ask those neighbors if they heard anything unusual the night Becky died?
The ones that I did make contact, I did ask them.
Okay, and did you ask any of those individuals if they saw anything unusual that night as well?
Most of the people advised that they did not hear or see anything.
Okay, and so the neighbors in the Kentucky Road neighborhood weren't particularly helpful to the investigation, correct?
With the exception of Mr. Hyman, that was, yeah, I would agree.
Okay, and after you canvassed the Kentucky Road neighborhood, where did you take your door-to-door canvassing from there?
It'd be the subdivision to the east of Chaddock, so it was at York Street.
Okay, and how many houses did you go door to door on York Street?
Roughly 20 to 30, maybe.
Okay, and how many hours did you spend going door to door on York Street?
Probably 2 to 3 hours.
Okay, and with respect to the people that you made contact with on York Street, were you able to find any viable surveillance video from York Street?
No, ma'am.
And did any of those individuals that you made contact with on York Street report to you anything unusual or out of the ordinary on the evening and early morning hours of February 22nd to 23rd?
No, ma'am.
And after you canvassed York Street, where did you take your door-to-door search?
I believe around that time, I had learned about the video surveillance on the bus barn.
Okay. And there was some video taken from the bus barn, correct?
Correct.
And the bus barn is located at 20th and Hampshire, correct?
Correct.
And after you came across the surveillance on, from the bus barn, is that 20th Street?
Yes.
Where else did you take your search?
I went all the way from, I checked every house on the corner of 20th and Hampshire, 20th and Vermont. I went 20th Street west, all the way down Hampshire Street to 18th Street. I went 20th and Vermont all the way down to 18th and Vermont. I checked the houses on the corner of 18th and Vermont.
And in that route of going door to door, how many doors do you think you knocked on and doorbells you rang looking for viable surveillance video?
20 maybe, 25.
All right. And how many hours did you spend on that particular portion of your search?
Maybe 2 hours.
Okay. And was there anything viable that came out of that search?
No.
Okay. And did any of those individuals that you made contact with report anything unusual or out of the ordinary?
No, they did not.
Did any of those individuals report seeing Tim on a bicycle?
No.
And did any of those individuals report seeing Tim on foot?
No.
And is that where your door-to-door search for surveillance would have ended?
Yes, because at that point I would have found the bicycle once I went through the alley.
Okay. Did you check any intersections between Tim's house at 1641 Hampshire and Becky's house on Kentucky Road to see if any intersections had viable video?
Are you referring to like on a stoplight or something?
Like at 18th and Main Street or something like that?
I don't believe I looked up at any traffic cameras or anything.
Okay, so no traffic cameras were looked at.
No.
Did you check to see if any other businesses in or around the area of Becky's house had viable surveillance video?
If there was a business, we knocked on it.
What businesses did you knock on?
I know we probably would have checked the 24th and State Airco gas station that sits on the corner.
All right, and did 24th and State have any viable video for you?
Not that I recall.
Did you check any businesses around the area of Tim's house at 1641 Hampshire?
We had went, not on Hampshire, I had went on Vermont Street, just west of 18th, I believe.
Okay, and what businesses did you check with on Vermont Street?
I'm sorry, must not have heard the question. You said businesses, I checked houses.
Okay.
Just west of 18th. I
Okay.
didn't check any businesses.
You did not check any businesses west of 18th Street, correct?
No.
And how far north did your search go?
Vermont.
And how far south did your search go?
Be Grove, I believe.
Okay, and then how far west did your search go?
Just a couple houses shy of 18th.
Okay, and how far east did your search go?
The east subdivision of Kentucky Road.
And in all of that, you found the bicycle that you've referred to, correct?
Correct.
And you came across 2 or 3 pieces of viable surveillance video?
Correct.
Nothing else, Judge?
Redirect.
Just to be clear, 2 or 3 locations, Taylor Hyman, 24th Street, and the Quincy Bus Barn.
Correct.
Multiple videos from each of those locations.
Correct.
And that's what your search was. Other officers were searching other areas, fair to say?
Correct.
And other officers were in charge of searching for traffic cameras.
Correct.
Not like you're the only one who was searching for video.
That's correct.
Lots of people were doing that.
That's correct.
That's all the questions I have.
You may step down.
Thank you, Judge.
Yes, it will give it to the bailiff, please. Counsel, you want to approach real quick? Right, call your next witness.
People would call Mike Blazing to the stand.
No.
Sir, if you'll step up to the front of the courtroom, please. Then raise your right hand, please, and be sworn by the clerk.
You do solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Now, if you'd come around here and have a seat right here in this chair. Then kind of scoot up to the table to where you're comfortable, all right?
All righty.
And then pull that microphone or bend that microphone so it's in front of you and speak towards the microphone, please.
Okay.
You may inquire.
Can you tell me your name, please?
Michael Blazing?
Mr. Blazing, do you live here in Quincy?
Yes, I do.
How long have you lived in Quincy?
All my life.
Mr. Blazing, do you have a social media Facebook page?
I do.
And do you sometimes sell items on, I think it's called Facebook Marketplace, is that right?
Yes.
Going to hand you what's been marked as People's Exhibits 144, 145, and 146.
Yes.
Can you take a look at those? Tell me when you've had a chance to look at those.
Yes.
Are those photographs of your Facebook page and certain items, or a particular item that you sold on Facebook Marketplace?
They are.
Do they accurately show your Facebook page and those items?
They do.
Your Honor, we'd ask that those exhibits 144 through 146 be admitted in evidence and ask leave of court to publish to the jury.
Any objection?
No.
144, 145, and 146 will be admitted, and you may publish them.
This is exhibit 144 on the screen. Mr. Blazing, is that your name?
Yes.
And is that your picture?
That is.
Your Facebook page?
Yes.
And you use that to sell items from time to time on Marketplace?
I do.
The bottom of the page, it says Mike's Listings. Are these all things that you sold at one point?
Yes.
And specifically, there's listed as sold men's bike, his and her 26-inch Schwinn. Is that right?
Yes.
You can go forward to 145. And exhibit 145, is this the bike that you sold?
It is.
And you would have sold that bike in October or so of 2022, is that right?
I believe so, yes.
This Schwinn bike, do you notice anything about the wheel specifically that it doesn't have?
No.
Are there any reflectors on either the front or back wheel?
No.
And the bike is a blue color, is that right?
Correct.
And again, just so we're clear, if you can go to 146, you sold that bike.
I did.
When you sold that bike in October of 2022, did that person pay in cash or with a check?
With cash.
Do you remember if that person was a man or a woman?
He was a man.
Do you remember if that man was white, black, Asian, Hispanic?
It was a white man.
Do you remember if that man was taller or shorter?
Tall, I'd say.
You're pretty tall. You're 6'6", 6'7"?
Yeah.
That person, was he as tall as you, a little shorter than you?
He's just a little shorter than me.
Fair enough. And as far as that person's, I guess I'll just say size, was fat, skinny, what?
Slender.
Slender?
Yeah.
Athletic, though.
Athletic, yeah,
Is
exactly.
that fair to say?
Sure.
Is it fair to say you don't remember anything else about that person?
That's about all I do remember.
And if I asked you if you saw that, if you would even recognize that person again, you couldn't answer that.
Unfortunately, I couldn't know.
You can't say, to be fair, you can't say that that person is the defendant or isn't the defendant. Whether or not it is or isn't, you don't know.
I do not.
You don't remember what he was driving.
No.
Thank you, Your Honor. That's all the questions I have.
Cross, Ms. Schnock?
Sir, I just have one question for you. I just want to make sure I'm understanding your testimony correctly. Sometime last fall, you sold a blue bike to a man.
Yes.
No other questions.
All right, anything further, Mr. Jones?
No, Your Honor.
You may step down. Next witness, Mr. Jones.
People would call Zach Bemis to the stand.
If you'll step up to the front of the courtroom, please. Raise your right hand and be sworn.
You do solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in a cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes. Come around here and have a seat right here. Scoot up to the table to where you're comfortable and bend the microphone in front of you and you may inquire.
Can you tell me your name, please?
Zach Bemis,
What do you do for a living?
Quincy Police Department detective.
How long have you worked for the Quincy Police Department?
Approximately 7.5 years.
Detective Bemis, I want to talk to you about some things that you did with regard to the investigation into the homicide of Rebecca or Becky Bliefnick, okay?
Yes.
Let's talk about first a bike ride that you did. In March of 2023, were you asked by your superiors and other detectives to, I guess, I'll just say it, you were asked to ride a bike?
Yes.
Where was that bike ride going to start?
20th and Hampshire Street
Where were
here
you
in
riding
Quincy. Riding to the 2500 block of Kentucky Road.
Basically riding from just before or just north of the Quincy bus barn to the location of the crime scene.
Yes.
Is that fair to say?
Yes.
What kind of bike did you use to do that ride?
It was a Schwinn Sidewinder bicycle.
Is it the same type of bike that Patrick Hollensteiner found in February of 2023?
Yes.
What time of night did you conduct that bike ride?
Approximately 10 p.m.
That bike that you used, were there any substantive differences between that and the bike that Patrick Hollensteiner found? Substantive, anything that would make that bike faster or slower than the bike that you found?
No.
Were there some cosmetic differences?
Yes.
And specifically, did the bike that you have reflectors on the wheels?
Yes.
And was there a video of that from the Quincy bus barn as well?
Yes.
When you rode from just north of the Quincy bus barn to the location of the victim's house, what route did you take?
Went south on 20th Street from Hampshire to Prairie Avenue, then east on Prairie Avenue to East Avenue, east on East Avenue to York Street, east on York Street to 24th Street, south on 24th Street to Kentucky Road, and east on Kentucky Road to the 2500 block.
Making that ride from that location to the crime scene took you approximately how long?
Just under 5 minutes.
Closer to 4 minutes? Between 4 and 5, I think at one point the time was 4 minutes and 37 seconds. Is that right?
Yes, I believe it's 4 minutes, 54 seconds.
Sorry, 4 minutes.
For the
54
first ride.
seconds. Did you do a second ride from the Quincy bus barn to that same location?
Yes.
And was that second ride faster?
Yes.
And how long did that second ride take?
It was 4 minutes and 22 seconds, approximately.
Riding from the Quincy, from that crime scene location back to the Quincy bus barn to just north of the Quincy bus barn took you approximately how long?
1 minute, 29 seconds from 23rd and York.
And then the second time?
2 minutes and 47 seconds.
I want to be clear, the first time you made the ride, it took you 1 minute and 20-some seconds, but you didn't actually start the timer until you were a little bit further down the road.
Correct.
And that's because of just operator error, fair to say.
Correct.
And then the second time it took how long?
2 minutes and 47 seconds.
Going from the bus barn to the location of the crime scene, that's slightly uphill.
Yes.
And going from the crime scene to the bus barn is slightly downhill.
Yes.
And is that why it was easier or faster to go back than it was to get there?
Yes.
You also were involved in what we'll call a trash pull, is that right?
Yes.
And was that at the residence of the defendant, 1641 Hampshire?
Yes.
Can you tell us basically what a trash pull is?
We basically get in contact with Central Services. I coordinated with them. rode on the back of a trash truck in their uniform to the location that we're going to obtain trash from. I obtained 3 garbage bags. I set them off to the side so I can keep an eye on them so they don't get mixed in with other garbage. Go to a set location, then take the bag somewhere else where we open them up.
And did you open up those bags?
Yes,
When you opened up the bags, did you find anything?
yes.
And specifically, what did you find?
There were 2 pairs of white latex gloves,
What date was this trash pull conducted on?
2/28 of 23.
That'd be more than 6 hours from 2/23/23, correct?
Yes,
And those white gloves were not sent for gunshot powder residue testing, is that correct?
that's correct.
Finally, I want to talk about this. Were you also involved in the search for video surveillance?
Yes.
Can you tell me about that? What was your area of responsibility? Where did you look for video?
Primarily around the 16th or 16th and Hampshire area and kind of the surrounding area around there.
Can you give me an idea of how many different houses you went to your best guess, best estimation?
Approximately 12 to 15.
And in those 12 to 15 houses that you went to, were you successful in recovering any video?
No.
Can you tell me why you couldn't find video at those locations?
Some of the residents, they set their geofence to where it stops in their yard. That way they don't have all the vehicle traffic down the road that sets their alarm off all the time. Some didn't have a set subscription paid, so it wouldn't actually record the video to where they could watch it later. They would just use it more as a Ring doorbell. And then some just were never home.
Some people didn't have video at all.
Correct.
Thank you, Detective. That's all the questions I have.
Cross, Ms. Schnock?
Yes. All right, bear with me, Detective, okay? Starting with the bike, where did the bike come from that you used for the different routes that you rode?
My house.
Okay, so this was a personal bike?
Yes.
Okay, and what was the size of the bike?
I don't recall the size.
Okay, do you know what types of tires were on the bike?
I don't
Okay.
recall.
Had the bike been serviced or received any type of maintenance prior to taking these practice routes?
No.
Okay. Are you an avid bike rider?
No.
And when you were going through these different simulations, did you keep track of any of your vital signs? Heart rate, breathing, anything like that?
No.
Okay. As far as the first route is concerned, you started that route at 20th and Hampshire, correct?
Yes.
And you ended that route at the 2500 block of Kentucky Road, correct?
Yes.
And neither Tim nor Becky lived at 20th and Hampshire, correct?
Correct.
And so your starting point for that route was neither Tim's house nor Becky's house, correct?
Correct.
And then your second route, you started off west on Kentucky Road, correct?
I was traveling west on Kentucky Road from the 2500 block.
Okay, and when did you start your timer on that second route? At what point on your route, or where were you at when you started your timer?
The second route was 23rd in York. I forgot to activate my body camera until that spot, so.
Okay, so was the time 1 minute and 29 seconds? That was only the time from 23rd in York to 20th in Hampshire,
Correct.
correct? And Tim did not live at 20th in Hampshire, correct?
Correct.
Becky did not live at 20th in Hampshire, correct?
Correct.
And neither one of them lived or had any association with 23rd in York, correct?
Correct.
And then you took a third route, correct?
Yes,
And that route, you started at 20th in Hampshire and ended at 2500 Kentucky Road, correct?
yes, the 2500 block of
Thank you.
Kentucky Road.
And is that slightly past Becky's house?
It was right in line with the driveway,
Okay.
to be specific.
Okay. And to be fair, 20th in Hampshire, that's where the bus barn is, correct?
Correct.
As far as, well, strike that. So as far as your starting point is concerned with all of these bike simulations, none of those routes actually started at Tim's house, correct?
Correct.
But the ending point on those routes was at the 2500 block of Kentucky Road, correct?
Correct.
Which is the spot that you said that was right in line with Becky's driveway.
Correct.
Okay. And as far as the trash pull is concerned, were the gloves that were recovered from those 3 trash bags sent off for any type of testing other than gunshot residue testing?
No.
Okay. And were you involved in any other trash pulls or trash searches?
Yes.
And when was that?
I don't recall the date. It was at a compost site.
Okay. And how much time was spent going through the compost site that day?
Probably approximately 8 hours.
And was there just shy of 800 tons of trash that was sifted through and searched through that day?
I don't know the exact tonnage, but it was quite a bit.
And was anything useful recovered from that trash search?
Not that I can recall.
When you were doing your canvassing for surveillance video in the area of 16th and Hampshire, did you look or did you approach any businesses for surveillance video?
No.
Did you search for any viable traffic camera video?
No.
Do you know or do you recall how far north your search went for surveillance video?
I recall going over to Vermont Street, but primarily established an area just to the north of 1641 Hampshire.
And how far south did you take your search for viable surveillance video?
I did not go south.
Okay. What about west? Did you go west of
West was down to 16th.
and then what about east?
East was 18th.
Okay. When you made contact with these individuals in the area of 16th and Hampshire, did any of those neighbors report seeing Tim on a bicycle the night of February 22nd?
No.
And did any of those individuals report seeing Tim on a bicycle the early morning hours of February 23rd?
No.
No other questions, Judge?
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
All right, you may step down. Next witness.
Your Honor, the people would call Bradley Eamon.
If you could step to the front of the courtroom, please. And then raise your right hand and be sworn by the clerk.
You do solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. And then if you come around here, have a seat right here in this chair. scoot up to the table to where you're comfortable, and then bend that microphone so it's in front of you and speak towards the microphone, please. You may inquire.
Thank you, Your Honor. Can you tell us your name, please?
My name is Brad Eamon,
Can you spell your last name for the court reporter?
Ehmen.
Thank you, Mr. Eamon. Where do you live at?
I live at 1665 Hampshire.
I'm gonna show you up here on the screen a map. It's People's Exhibit 116 that's previously been admitted. Mr. Eamon, is this your house right here that I'm circling?
It is,
So you lived just to the east of 1641 Hampshire, is that right?
correct.
How long have you lived at your residence?
Approximately 10 years.
In January of 2023, did you have a neighbor by the name of Timothy Bliefnick?
Yes,
Do you see Mr. Bliefnick here in court today?
I do.
Could you point him out by where he's sitting and what he's wearing, please?
He's wearing a brown quarter zip, sitting on the end of these two tables.
Governor, the record to reflect that Mr. Eamon has identified the defendant.
The record will reflect that that the witness has identified the defendant.
Sometime in that middle to end of January 2023, did you have a conversation with the defendant about surveillance cameras?
I did.
Tell me what time of day that was.
Early evening,
Did the defendant initiate the conversation with you?
yes.
Tell us what he asked you.
He asked me if I had any cameras that showed his backyard.
And did you in fact have any cameras that
I-
showed his backyard?
No,
And did you tell him that at that time?
I did.
I don't have any other questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Questions, Ms. Schnock?
Just a few. Just a few quick questions, Mr. Eamon. Have you ever had issues with trespassers in your yard?
Yes,
Do you know if Tim has had issues with trespassers in his yard?
Objection.
That will be sustained.
Have you ever observed anybody in Tim's yard that did not live there?
no.
Okay. Are trespassers in your yard, or why do you have cameras in the back that
I
face-
don't.
Okay, you do not. Okay. When was the last time you would have had you would have seen any trespassers in your backyard or on your property?
I don't know that I've ever necessarily seen them, the neighbors had,
Okay.
so.
And as far as February 22nd is concerned, you did not see anything unusual in your neck of the woods on that evening, correct?
No,
And the early morning hours of February 23rd, did you ever see or hear anything unusual come from Tim's home?
no,
Okay. And do you know why you were being asked about surveillance video?
no.
Objection. Speculation.
That will be sustained.
Did Tim tell you why he was asking?
Objection.
He can, it's a statement by the defendant.
Offered by them, Your Honor. If it's offered by us,
All right, then it's hearsay.
I'll strike the question, Your Honor. Other than this, and you didn't think anything, when was this conversation, you said, sir, January
Yeah, middle to end of January,
of this year?
correct.
Okay. Did you ever have any further conversations about surveillance
No.
with Tim? Okay. And it never came up again?
Nope.
Okay. No other questions, Judge?
Redirect.
No further questions, Your Honor.
You may step down.
Your Honor, I'd ask that Mr. Eamon be excused from his subpoena.
Any objection, Ms. Schnock?
Nope.
All right, you're free to go.
Judge, at this point, we don't have any more witnesses for today. We have several lab people scheduled to testify tomorrow, which is why we couldn't bring them in this afternoon. So that's kind of where we are at this point, Your Honor.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you're going to be released for the day. Then I'm going to give you this admonishment again. You're going to get tired of hearing it, but you should not do any independent investigation or research on any subject or person relating to the case. What you may have seen or heard outside the courtroom is not evidence. This includes any press, radio, television programs, and it also includes any information available on the internet. Such programs, reports, and information are not evidence, and your verdict should not be influenced in any way by such material. For example, you must not use the internet, including Google, Wikipedia, or any other sources that you might otherwise use to search for any information about the case or the law which applies to the case or the people involved in the case, including the defendant, witnesses, lawyers, and judge. During the course of the trial, do not communicate with, provide information personally, in writing, or electronically to anyone about this case, not even your own families or friends, courtroom personnel, and also not even among yourselves until instructed otherwise. You must not provide any information about the case to anyone by any means at all, and this includes posting information about the case or your thoughts about it on any device or internet site, including blogs, chat rooms, or any social networking websites such as Twitter, Facebook, or any other means. You cannot use any electronic devices or services to communicate about this case, including cell phones, smartphones, laptops, the internet, and any other tools of technology. The use of any such devices or service in connection with your duties is prohibited. And then having said that, you are free to go for the evening. If you would return again and be in the jury room by 10 till 9 tomorrow, then we will try and get started right at 9 o'clock, all right? All right. We will be.
All right.
Mr. Jones, anything we need to discuss before tomorrow?
Nothing on the record, or nothing that needs to be on the record. I would like to have a brief conversation with the court and Ms. Schnock about scheduling for tomorrow and Tuesday and going forward.
All right, we will do that after you want to do that right after we recess?
That'd be great, Your Honor, if that
Okay.
works.
And then Ms. Schnock, anything you need us to put on the record before we adjourn?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Okay, same routine, 8:30 tomorrow in the courtroom. Make sure we're ready by 9 o'clock when the jury comes in.
Yes, sir.
We will be adjourned for the day.